second for my St. Christopher's medal really quick?
I'll take it off for you, or I'll have her do it, okay?
An Ohio man breaks down sobbing as he's arrested and charged with assaulting and endangering the children his parents adopted.
Just get us back. Can we roll down the window so you can get some air?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sheriff's body cameras were recording when his stepmother was arrested days earlier. I take a look at the new charges the Edmondsons are facing out of Ohio. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Matthew and Charles Edmondson were charged last month with 5 counts of child endangering. The prosecutor had said they tortured the 5 children they adopted. 3 of the children were triplets. The prosecutor says the children were treated worse than prisoners of war at the house east of Cincinnati. It sounds like a virtual house of horrors. Detectives claim the children were deprived of food and physically abused. When the Edmondsons were first charged, they faced 5 counts of child endangering. Now the couple faces additional charges, 7 counts of felonious assault and 19 counts of child endangering. That's a total of 31 felony counts each.
Hello? I'm Deputy Bailey. You got anything in your pockets at all? Nothing at all. You turn this side out.
Matthew Edmondson turned herself in last month. She had an attorney at the time and didn't say much. The police report documenting the investigation, which started with the sexual assault complaint in August of 2022, claims that Matthew Edmondson told detectives her husband Charles wasn't bisexual, but that they had met in a gay chat room. Charles Edmondson has been in prison serving time for sexual battery. The prosecutors said Edmondson had sex with an adopted son who was an adult at the time, but the grooming had started much earlier. The sheriff's office released a police report that showed Clermont County sheriff's deputies first started investigating Charles Edmondson for sexual assault back in August of 2022. A man reported that Edmondson assaulted him with a sex toy the day before. There was a lot of contact between detectives and the Edmondsons related to the investigation. The sexual assault accuser, who was 18 at the time, claimed that Charles Edmondson had been sexually assaulting him for 6 years. Some of the allegations made against Charles Edmondson include him sexually assaulting a boy that park staff believed was his son at a state park and defecating in the shower. That was part of the sexual battery investigation that started in 2022. Around that time, when detectives approached Charles Edmondson, he refused to talk to them or allow them to look at videos on his phone. As Charles Edmondson was serving time in prison for the sexual battery case, he and Matthew Edmondson were charged with felony child endangering. Clermont County Prosecutor Mark Tacalvi told me he felt the Edmondsons tortured the 5 special needs children that they had adopted.
They would be placed in the basement. There was a bed in the basement. It was a cold concrete floor. Sometimes there would be a mattress on this one bed, often not. The defendants, I'm not going to call them parents because they didn't act in any way that a parent should ever act. These defendants had installed a video monitoring system and audio so they could communicate back and forth with these children. They would be punished. They would be stripped naked, placed in the basement. There are images of one child in just a horrible mess of his own waste. These 3 little fellas, the triplets, they are just wrapped up with one another naked, and you can imagine why they're doing this. It is for warmth and probably for comfort as well. But we intend to prosecute this case and seek the maximum possible penalty.
Now, to be clear, the alleged abuse of those 5 adopted children was discovered while the investigation into the sexual assaults was underway. Earlier this month, just a couple of weeks after the Edmondsons were charged, their 20-year-old son was taken into custody.
Let me check you real quick, make sure you don't have any guns or anything like that.
20-year-old Bailey Edmondson faces 2 counts of felonious assault and 4 counts of child endangering. The sheriff says the charges stem from mental and physical abuse inflicted on the children in the home. Now remember, these are all young children. The triplets were between 6 and 8 years old when the alleged abuse occurred. The other siblings were older but younger than 13.
But what I can tell you is these children are special needs children. And some of the injuries that they sustained are consistent with the behaviors that would be exhibited by special needs children. And they didn't communicate. The defendants convinced them that adults were bad. They shouldn't report things that were occurring in the home to other adults. My kids, when they were little, they were injured all the time. I think I went to Children's Hospital 11 times in a 12-month period. You have 4 boys. They're breaking bones or getting stitches. So that's why I think it was easy to explain away these injuries.
Bailey Edmonson began to sob as deputies put him in cuffs.
I'll pat you down real quick, okay? Just turn around for me. No guns or knives on you?
Bailey, I don't mean to be rude, but were you born a man or a woman? You were born a female?
Yes.
Okay. So what will happen? Sorry. Once we get to the jail, obviously you're gonna go through a body scanner. You don't have anything inside you, so I'm not gonna pat down below your waist or anything like that. Okay. So once we get to the jail, they're gonna check. Okay. Do you care to turn around for me real quick? And then
Bailey, you need to explain to them.
unlock your fingers for me.
Did you explain? Can I give her my St. Christopher's medal really quick?
I'll take it off for you, or I'll have her do it. Okay.
Tell her the dogs are not locked up.
I will tell Peanut. I'll also text your mom, and you will be apparently tomorrow in court for your bond hearing. I'll be there. Okay? I love you, buddy. Take care.
Deputies led Bailey Edmonson to a cruiser to take him to jail. He turned back to talk to the woman who took off his necklace.
Do you need anything else?
No.
Okay.
Can you tell me what you're telling me about the dogs?
Okay, I will tell him all about the dogs and everything.
So there's a cruiser behind this white car.
Okay. Julie, can you tell? Sorry.
Okay.
I'll call your grandpa.
Can you tell me you really love her?
I will. I will, sweetie.
Deputies walked Edmonson to the cruiser. He sobbed the entire way.
Just get us back. Can we roll down the window so you can get some air?
Yes, please.
Okay. Just slide on there. Sorry.
I want to bring in Detective Troy Looney of the Akron Police Department. Troy, talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on this case. The child abuse is uncovered after police are investigating this awful allegation of sexual assault by Charles Edmonson.
Yes, so my understanding of the abuse and nature of the case, obviously it's terrible, and I understand that the children are now in protective custody, but
Yes.
this took place, I guess, as of several months now. Also, it sounds like there was some opposition to them being placed there originally. That's my understanding.
Definitely.
Obviously, there are a lot of working components of what took place, and parts of the case investigation from the CPS to the sheriff's office to other detectives. So kind of hard to have all the working pieces of the puzzle to understand all the dynamics, but it would be good to see what, how the outcome is adjudicated. So
How common is it that you're investigating something as horrific as a sexual assault? And the allegations in this case, I mean, I feel like half of them I can't even talk about on YouTube because they're so, graphic and disgusting. But then you discover evidence potentially of other crimes, which is how the prosecutor says this unfolded, that they got a hold of Charles Edmonson's phone. He wouldn't let them look at it. And so it took some time, but they had to get into that phone. And once they did, they find these videos showing, surveillance cameras in the house showing these children, he said they're piled on top of each other like puppies, naked in the basement on a concrete floor trying to stay warm. So how common is it that you are investigating one crime and you find others?
Typically, so it's pretty common for us to investigate and uncover other crimes or other additional offenses that may have taken place within the same context of the case. It's really contingent upon what kind of data is available, what kind of evidence has been discovered. So in this case, I understand Mr. Edmonson was charged for one particular or several particular offenses, and upon examination of the phone, that new discoveries of these allegations, these videos and images were discovered. So then you go back to your prosecution and approach that with additional search authority if necessary, and or additional offenses to be charged. Of course, separate investigations require separate discovery, separate search authority, separate components as to what's required. Are there additional victims? Or is it potentially the same victims that have been offended or criminalized in a different manner? So just contingent upon the totality of the evidence that we find.
I've heard of these cases before where you can't get into a phone. The police can't get into a phone. And so there are some cases I've seen where they actually have to get the Secret Service involved in getting into the phone. And that took some time in this case. The prosecutor's not commenting on who got into the phone for them, but a lot of times
Right.
it is the Secret Service that has to break into the phone. So talk to me about how challenging that can be in an investigation.
Yeah, so the challenges that are presented with that in that capacity where we have to engage and collaborate with other agencies, that's not uncommon because we all have different resources, we all have different um, components and equipment to use, different levels of expertise and so forth. So it is not uncommon to request the services of other agencies such as Secret Service, whomever was responsible for assisting. Um, these data and these devices are very intricate and they're very complex in terms of the make and model versus like iPhone versus Android devices. Some of the iPhone components, or if this, I'm not sure if this was an iPhone or Android, but in either context, it's contingent upon the difficulty, the encryption that may have been present. It's contingent upon the passwords or passcodes, if there was cooperation or not. In this case, there was no cooperation, as we know. But with that being the case, it's contingent upon how the devices are locked down and what's required to engage and to find and break through the protected elements that are there. So it's they're all different. Each case is different, but I'm just glad they were able to gain entry into these devices and that device particularly to find these new images and new data.
Do you think we could possibly see more coming out of this? I mean, the Edmondsons were already indicted once, then a new indictment came with additional charges. The prosecutor had initially told us, we're not done with this yet. Now we have the son, the 20-year-old son, being indicted. He's accused of being in on this too. Your thoughts on the son, the 20-year-old, being allegedly a part of this horrific abuse that the prosecutor said, these kids, special needs kids, were being treated worse than prisoners of war.
Yeah, so my thoughts on some of the details mentioned about the kids and the treatment. Obviously, this was a collaborative effort by the family to avoid detection of what they were doing, the offenses they were committing, and crimes. It makes more sense to me, obviously, that um, if you're trying to uncover what's taking place with the children, check on their well-being, their welfare. Are they being fed properly? Are they attending school even? Are they enrolled? All those things are factor into, what is the status of the children? What's the status of the home? How accessible would the residents be, and how much access services would have to the children, just to check their well-being. So it makes more sense being a collaborative effort by the family to avoid detection and avoid being discovered.
But the 20-year-old son being brought into this now too. I mean, you're saying it was a collaborative effort, but I mean, is it just like coming up in that environment? I mean, these are all allegations that have to be proven in court, of course, but is it just a 20-year-old being brought up through that? And I mean, you would think there might be a protective instinct there, but obviously the prosecutor and the sheriff are saying no.
That is correct. And of course, we are speculating, but in that context, there very well could be some past history of that 20-year-old being abused themselves, and or potentially other crimes that have been committed, or just the fear factor of the parents or foster parents um, making statements or setting a foundation, unfortunately, one of this nature, setting the precedence to, avoid being discovered and avoid detection. So not sure, not knowing the history of the 20-year-old and of the family or any other offenses that may have taken place. It'll be nice to have like psychologists, uh, talk about, some of the details, some of the history, maybe behavioral health and so forth, as to the mindset of the parents and the 20-year-old when they interview that party. The statements will be interesting to hear about what took place and how.
Well, it's horrifying. And these poor children, the last time we talked to the prosecutor, he said that, they're doing well, which is good. Let's hope that they aren't absolutely scarred for life. And it is very concerning that some of the officials in that county opposed this adoption, and yet it was able to go through in another county anyway. Detective Troy Looney, we're going to keep an eye on this case and see where it goes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully that the kids are doing better, much better, and they get some additional assistance further.
Daley Edmondson and his stepmother, Matthew Edmondson, remain in the Clermont County Jail where they are being held on those charges. That's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.